Welcome to the It's All About Missions podcast with Brady Van Winkle, as we endeavor to talk about missions and the need for the gospel all around the world. We hope we can help you find your place in world evangelism. And for questions or for more information, please check out it'sallaboutmissions.com. And now we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of It's All About Missions Country of the Week podcast. And I'm going to go ahead and start this podcast off by apologizing that it's been a while since I put out some podcasts. Things got really busy here while in the country of Turkey, getting some things done. Holidays coming up, all that stuff got us very busy. And so I have now had the opportunity to sit back down and get going. And hopefully, going forward, these will continue out every week, and we'll continue to have the Country of the Week podcast coming out. And this week, we're going to continue with the Country of the Week, continue kind of the order we were going in, and we're going to go back to Europe. And we're going to look at a country there that some people may know about, you may not know anything about, but we're going to talk today about the country of Slovakia. And a lot of people, they don't know Slovakia much about it, but you may remember or may know its old name. It used to be a part of Czechoslovakia. And then in 1993, they split from the Czech Republic, which is now Czechia, and became their own country of Slovakia. And so it is its own country there. The language there is Slovak. And I'm sure there's some other languages mixed in between there, but the main official language is Slovak, which a lot of those languages are very similar between there and some of the other surrounding countries. A lot of them you can communicate fairly decently between like there and Bosnian and things along those lines, because they're all very close to each other. At one time they were together, and so they all have a similar sound, some of those, from what I've heard and read, a lot of them you can go from one country to another country and be able to kind of understand, to kind of talk to people and things like that in those countries. But Slovakia is a country of about 5.5 million, almost 5.5 million people live there in the country. And the capital city and its largest city is Bratislava. I'm probably saying that wrong, and I apologize if you're from Slovakia and I'm saying your capital city wrong. I apologize. Bratislava. I'm doing my best to pronounce it as it looks like it would be pronounced. And it's got a population of right around 500,000 people, give or take. I'm sure the surrounding areas will make it a little over 1 million, but it's the largest city there. It's the capital city there in Slovakia. Now, the makeup of the religion in Slovakia, about 60% of it would be Roman Catholic. There's about 15% are non-religious. There's another about 10 to 12% that did not answer the survey that they recently had, and so it's unknown what there are. And then there's, Lutheran and Greek Orthodox and things along those lines that are all there. Small percentage of those. There's a small percentage of Muslim population, Jewish population there. But what's sad is there's a very, very little population of Christianity. They're very, yes, you say, Roman Catholic considered Christian, yes. But again, all these religions I mentioned, all are work-based. They have to do something to try to earn favor with God and to try to get to God and do all these things. But the truth is, we know that there's only one way to God, and that's through Jesus Christ. When you pray for the country of Slovakia, and I don't know if you know of any people that are working there in the country of Slovakia, but we need to pray for them. We need to pray that God will raise up some laborers and send to the country of Slovakia. It's in the heart there of Europe, and through that area you could probably reach into Slovakia, Czechia, and some of the surrounding countries and reach into those areas, because there's a great need for the gospel there, and there's a need to get laborers there. And yes, it's a smaller country, but it doesn't matter if there's 5.5 million, 1 million, 90 million, 1 billion people. Guess what? There's people dying, going to hell. We need to get the gospel to them. So I'd ask you this week, let's pray for the country of Slovakia. First, let's pray for those Christians that might be there. Pray for those pastors that might be there, that are working, that are laboring, the missionaries, those that are laboring in the country, that are sharing the gospel. Let's pray that God will give them boldness. Let's pray that God will give them fruit for the labor. But also, let's pray that God will raise up an army of laborers to give their lives to go to the country of Slovakia. They will go there. They'll learn the Slavic language. That they will preach the gospel to the people in Slovakia, and that we can see Slovakia reach with the gospel in this generation. I want to challenge you, as I always do. Yes, we need to be praying for each country around the world, that we can see it reach with the gospel and the world reach with the gospel in this generation. But in order to do that, every Christian must be doing their part in helping to see the world reach the gospel. So I want to ask you and challenge you, what are you doing right now, right where you are, to help see the world reach the gospel in this generation? And I want to challenge you, if you should be faithfully attending your church. You should be sharing the gospel with people. You should be discipling people. If opportunity arises, you should be taking trips around the world. And honestly, you should be praying and asking God if it would be His will for your life, and seeking God's will for your life. But I would highly suggest you consider giving your life to taking the gospel to one of these countries, so that we can help see the world reach the gospel in this generation. God's desire, God's heartbeat is that the world would hear the gospel, and His last command to us, His greatest command, was to go take the gospel to the whole world. So I want you to join us in praying for the country of Slovakia, and let's pray that we can see Slovakia reach the gospel in this generation. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of It's All About Missions. And we'd like to ask you to do a couple things for us. The first thing I ask you to do, so if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date when all of our new episodes drop. And that way, as a new episode comes, you'll get a notification that lets you know, hey, we've got a new episode of It's All About Missions. Second thing I ask you to do, if you haven't yet, please make sure to leave us a review. These reviews are very vital, and they help us out, and they help other people to see us in the podcast player of choice. They'll see us and see those reviews and say, hey, I want to check out this podcast. And lastly, one other thing I'd like you to do, why don't you share us with a friend, a family member, somebody you know, and say, hey, why don't you go over and check out It's All About Missions. That'll help us grow our audience, help people to know more about It's All About Missions, and guess what? It'll help more people get involved in reaching the world with the gospel. I want to challenge you to know that the Bible, it's all about missions. And as a Christian, your life should be all about missions. And what are you going to do to impact the world with the gospel in this generation?